Thank you. Yes, so I work for the Center for Open Science, and as part of our mission, we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting open science practices in research. Um, yep. So I know you've just been in a conference about open science for, this is your second day, but just kind of in general, we start off by, addressing what is open science. Why is that important? And then how do you do that? Um, there's open science, open scholarship. They're kind of the same. The use of the term science can be exclusionary for those in the arts and humanities who also do research and conduct, experiments. Looking at like UNESCO's definition, open science encompasses open access, open infrastructure, open labs, crowdfunding, open notebooks, innovation, citizen science. A lot of stuff is ongoing now about, people monitoring heat within their own cities and reporting that on various open platforms. Also open hardware. The NIH has a whole repository of how to 3D print various instruments that you can use in your lab. So all of these things are encompassed in open science and open scholarship. One of the biggest components of that is FAIR principles for scientific data management. FAIR means findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, or as we like to say, reproducible. And that was kind of, here's the definitions of open science. As I mentioned, the UNESCO's, openly available, accessible, and reusable, collaborative, shared, enabling, input and interaction beyond traditional scientific communities. There's also the Foster definition where it's more about collaboration, that things are freely available, that things can be, reused, redistributed, and reproduced. And then even the White House has recently, just last year, gotten involved in making research products processes available to all, and having, guaranteeing open access to data with their OSTP announcement back in 2022. So how did the Center for Open Science get started? Back in, early 2010s, there was a notice that there was a crisis of confidence amongst researchers in the reproducibility of research. And this is data from a Nature paper, where you can see in a lot of experiments that people had trouble reproducing various experiments, including their own, which is, causes, the public as well as other researchers to, have distrust in the data and the publishings that they're finding. So COS was founded on the mission to increase the openness, integrity, and reproducibility of research, strengthening the research at all the kind of components of the research life cycle, from your creation of a hypothesis to your data collection, through to publication and then access of the data you've created during your research project, as well as I think one of the big things that we find extremely important is that negative data is not bad. The access to hypotheses or theories that don't work and the data generated from that is useful. And just because it's not fancy or easy to get put into a journal doesn't mean that it's not useful, and you should be recognized for your work. Research serves humanity most effectively when its outcomes are credible and reproducible, Credibility is maximized when rigor and transparency are applied during both planning, conducting, reporting, and then going into looking for other people doing research in your field. So we have our theory of change. It's a pyramid with, a top-down component where if it's required, and that's one of the things we work on. We have policy, we have a research team, and then we have our infrastructure team. So there's making it required, making it rewarding, so incentivize, and positive reinforcement for those who are working in open science and doing those practices. Make it normative. Like, if this is something that everybody in your community is doing, that every time you start a project, you make that data, openly accessible while you're collecting it or after you've collected it. And then the two key components that I'll be kind of talking about are making it easy. The harder something is to do, it's less likely to be adopted. Make it possible, Yes, it has to be easy, but then the key tools have to be there to do it. And that's where the open science framework comes in. And I'll go there real quick. So this is the OSF. I highly recommend, if you're a researcher, you just create an account. Your institution has an institutional membership. So you can log in through a single sign-on, and you will automatically be affiliated with your institution if you're at Florida State. For anybody else from outside of Florida State, your institution may have an institutional membership where they can see your activity and, be prepared to share that on their institutional page. Okay. So like I said, infrastructure is the part that I work on, or the OSF. And this is the platform that enables you to create projects, create registrations, publish preprints, all of the things that allow you to make all of the aspects of your research project open and accessible to the public. As I mentioned before, we have a lot of other tools, the registries that can be used in planning. That's where you would, register your hypothesis. Also in planning, there's access to preprints, search and discover, where you can find out, your hypothesis. Is anybody else working on that? Has anyone else done that more recently? As a lot of you know, sometimes looking at published articles, by the time it gets published, that research is a year old. So in theory and in practice, actually, a lot of the work on the OSF is either ongoing or has been registered, the hypothesis. And so the work has maybe started. So you're more aware of the most current research questions within your field that are being studied. And you can either, use that to better define your own hypothesis, or reach out to, those researchers to see if there's a potential for collaboration or things like that. And then there's the, conducting the research, which is generally just the OSF itself, creating a project. Reporting, we have meetings that you can access. You can set up a meeting that we host for free, and people can put posters and talks on the meeting. And then that is there, then, archived on our website for future, use. And then once again, discovery, all of those, talks and posters for meetings are actually projects on the OSF. So they're discoverable. Sometimes a lot easier than trying to find posters and talks from meetings that are not on the OSF. Like I know trying to find a poster I gave at a biophys journal, a biophys meeting from 10 years ago is really hard. And then we also have a collections product where various organizations or funders have a broad range of aggregated projects that are related to their specific organizational research goals or objectives that are then collected for people to, easily discover things. And it's kind of a stamp of approval that this is like been looked at by a various organization. So the OSF, as Gizem mentioned, it's a cloud-based open source collaborative management service. It's essentially a repository. We're part of the NIH generalist repositories that ensures researchers will never lose their work. We have a backup plan that ensures that even if the COS is no longer around, that all of the data backed up, or all of the data on the OSF is guaranteed for at least 50 years. And we do not have plans to end anytime soon. We just hit our 10-year anniversary. Researchers are able to deposit research data, materials, protocols, documents, code in flexible project spaces that allow you can create your project, start off with a team, and then as you get new researchers into your lab, or potentially foster new collaborations outside your lab, can add them in and be very open and collaborative during the entire research process. There's also really cool controls over permissions and privacy you can do within the OSF that allows you to keep maybe certain data that you have not de-identified yet private until you de-identify it, or if you're unable to de-identify it, or there's that your sample size is small enough that it would be easy to figure out who it is just by the lack of sample size and wherever you're taking your data from, to keep it private and set up a method of like having a request to access data within your project. We also do workshops and trainings to kind of facilitate community adoption. Usually when we put on or include a new institution or organization on the OSF hosting either a registry, a community operated registry, a collection, or an institutional membership, we give them a high level onboarding and then offer services to train their users in how to best use the OSF. We also have instructional videos on our YouTube page. And then we also work with communities and organizations to kind of create standard templates or workflows to make sure that their data is being presented in the way that aligns with, ease of use for their community, and that workflows align, with how they would like to see their data put up or not put, but put onto the OSF, and ensure that it's easily reusable and collaborative for their specific community. And so some of the other really cool things about the OSF is it's really interoperable. There's a lot of other tools that can be integrated with it. We are actually working on expanding that, as we always do, but making it easier for third-party software to access our API and write their own code to integrate, so that we're not always, or our engineers aren't always the only ones that are creating the code to integrate with a third-party piece of software. We do a lot with, trying to leverage the use of the PIDs, personal identifiers, to connect researchers to their materials and their, institutions through like RORs, their DOIs, ORC IDs, so that all of your things are all connected, and anywhere you go, they stay with you and are tagged with you, and they're yours. We also have the specialized interfaces that streamline the connections. Some of the storage add-ons we have Google Drive, AWS, OneDrive, Box, a whole plethora of additional storage add-ons, so that if you're already using those, in your work, you can just connect them to your OSF project and to your OSF user account so that, you know, you're kind of keeping all of those things with you as you move along your, you know, research life cycle yourself. And then, like I said, we have an open and free API that can be used to extend our capabilities. We have one service that created a little software tool that you can create a project outline in a Word document, and then it'll import it into the OSF and set up your project just like that Word document with like your, you know, you create components in a certain manner, like headings, and it just automatically does that, which is really cool. And we hope to get put up on our website soon so that others can utilize that and not just their users. You know, talking about the use of the OSF, we hit 500,000 actual users. How many of those are current is definitely still a question, but it's a lot of users and a lot of material on our platform. Talking about, you know, as I talked about all of the different add-ons, we also have connections with various citation managers. I use Zotero, but there's also Mendeley. We also have, you know, all of the assessment work, various outreach publications. We host a bunch of preprints. We also have our own preprint service, OSF preprints. There's some analysis software. We're also looking to add electronic lab notebooks and data management plan tools. So I'm not going to show you either one of these two videos. The top one is about 50 minutes. It's a really full dive into the OSF. You're going to follow Sophia, a researcher. The second one is the short version. It's about 15 minutes. I highly recommend you watch these. I will give the slides to Camille after I'm done, and she can share these. So if you are interested, you can look at these. I don't know how we're going to run questions, but I have the ability to do that. And then I also have about 2 minutes. I can show you some cool new search. We improved our search functions for anybody who has used the OSF in the past, and it is a lot better, and more improvements are coming out next week.
But I will say that I'm glad to hear that you're working, that the COS is working on the interoperability aspect, because I think those integrations are really going to provide a lot of value for people, being able to make their data portable across different services and pieces of infrastructure. Real great value proposition. And I also really like...
Oh, I think was I in the breakout room with you?
I think we were.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I remember this. I made notes of this, and I agree. Like, we do need to be able to, like, and that's something that was in the NIH grade discussion. This is like, I want to take mine from this repository to this repository to this repository, and we all have to work together to get that to happen. Like,
right.
Because you should be able. Yeah, you should be able to. Yes.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
So not to repeat myself, sorry, but...
No, but it's a good point, and I appreciate you bringing it up for others to hear as well. Like, that is something that is a goal and has been a goal, and it's just, getting the time and bandwidth to get it done. And then the Gray Collaborative is great for that, because it puts everybody in the same room. That's where my boss and his boss are right now at that meeting out in California. So
great. I also want to mention that one pager that COS released maybe a year ago, specifically saying how OSF allows researchers to meet their needs with regards to open data and publication sharing. Things like that, documentation like that is extremely helpful in kind of selling the platform to researchers and administrators alike.
Yeah, no, we kind of, I think we have it streamlined now to a point where you can include that in a grant. Like, because it's all grant writing is hard. And so, like, the more cut and paste kind of things you have is like, how are you going to deal with your data? Oh, I'm going to use this data, we have those things available. And I think it's just figuring out how to get them up and on the OSF so that they're accessible all the time for all the researchers is a really important thing to do.
Right, thank you.
No, thank you.
I have a question. Is there a kind of ballpark timeline about the development of the electronic lab manuals? Or notebooks, sorry.
So well, we do have hold on, I can do this in here. We have a template. That you can use. Oh wait, that's search. Hold on, project. So this is a electronic lab notebook template that you can use. We also have a couple of others that I can find and have reference to. So there is one that we developed. I think this was with George Mason. That is accessible or available now, but then as an add-on. So I think our first new add-on is going to be the data management plan tool. And then the work that is done to make that easier, like to, set up new add-ons, like in a really, kind of easy process. The second one after that's an electronic lab notebook, just based on requests we get from users. And I guess I can, Gizam can talk to you about that too, but one of the things we really try to do is through our help desk, if you contact support or contact, is look at the features users are asking for and then use those to prioritize the next steps in like what we add to our platform.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Blaine, for joining us today.
Thank you. And when I send out the slides, there's my name on there. You can also, if you contact support@osf.io or support@cos.io, those questions can also be directed to me or others within the product team to answer and help you with. Even if you're just using the OSF and you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Nizam can tell you real people answer your questions. It's not a computer, it's not an algorithm, it's a real person. So, all of us that do that enjoy doing it because our growth that I showed you on a previous slide is all because we got started small and people talked about us, and that is how we became to be accepted within the various communities that are really dependent upon us. So, all right. Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.